Hi everyone, it's Kimber, the Study Abroad Specialist. In today's video, we're going to be talking about community colleges in the U.S. for international students. So welcome back to the channel, everyone. Again, if you are new, my name is Kimber. I am here to help you with all aspects of study abroad. Please like this video, share this video, and also subscribe. So today what we're going to be talking about is community colleges and how this could be a great journey into the American education system for international students. So community college is something that I love talking about because I feel like it's often overlooked. And I know for international students in particular, it's not something that you may often hear about within your home countries. You are familiar with our sort of marquee colleges and universities here in the US, but community colleges can be a great entryway into our system overall and also to set you up for success in a lot of ways. And so we're going to cover that. And so I want to start out by just talking about what community colleges are. So community colleges are two-year colleges where you have an opportunity to set a baseline for your education. I just want to point out, even for me as someone who has gone to four-year colleges and has several degrees from universities here in the US and also abroad, I even use community college as well. And I know other people have to supplement where, let's say for my undergraduate degree, maybe there was a class that wasn't available at the semester I needed it. And there's been other ways that I've seen people use community college. So it's essentially open to anyone as long as they are at least 16 years of age. And a lot of students here, even in the US, when they're in high school, take community college classes to begin their college journey so that they can get ahead. But for international students, this is going to be a potential great way for you to be able to test the waters, to make sure that you are interested after you actually get engaged into a college community in the US before you have to set out on the financial commitment of that and also the heavier weight of the academics. So with community colleges, there are so many around the country. Most states have multiples of them. I will get into a little bit more of some of the states that are leading the community college space. But they are just a wonderful opportunity for you to be able to dive into a college experience without a full commitment. Now, they do offer very similar to the four-year colleges and universities. You can do part-time or full-time. However, for a student visa, you will likely need to be full-time, so you'll just need to consider that. But again, with community college, it's great because not only are they centered around whatever community you're living in. So if you want to come to the US and you want to move to Texas, or you want to move to North Carolina, or you want to move to Hawaii even, there's going to be a community college there, multiples of them. But it's going to be great because you're going to be living and going to school with people amongst the actual community that you're living in. So maybe there's a place that you've been interested in trying out, like Dallas or Maui, and you're like, I really want to live here, but I don't necessarily want to commit to the full-time four-year university just yet. This could be a great entry point for that, and you're going to meet so many different people from the community. One of the great things about community colleges as well is that it sort of spans the range of experience when it comes to students and teachers. From a student perspective, it's great because you have people, again, like I said, that could be as young as 16 who are just getting credits for what they need for their diploma for high school, all the way up until people literally in their 80s or 90s who are just looking for enrichment. I love things like that. I know even in some of the classes I took, there were a broad span of people that you're not necessarily going to get any four-year traditional college or university here in the US, where it's mainly going to be people in their 20s or people that are in graduate school that are much more just focused on beginning their career. So just something to think about on that. And also too, one of the important things to note that's sort of interesting that I think a lot of international students may not know or be aware of is that here in the US, particularly for our four-year colleges and universities, we have a lot of academics and a lot of scholars, which is fantastic and great. But in a lot of spaces, we don't always have people who are specialists. And that's something that's an important conversation as well. I'm not going to get into it here, but it's something that was really important to me when I was thinking about my particular school. I went to a school that really focused in on hiring specialists and not just people that are in academics and in the ivory tower for that sense of being. And I know for me, even going to the UK, that was a big deal, that a lot of the instructors were specialists, meaning that, for example, when I had business school teachers, that when I was in business school, that they actually had run and open businesses. It's a lot different here in the US, where you have people talking more from theory and more from their academic perspective, but they may not have ever run a business. And in community college, you're going to meet a lot more specialists. So you can have people that, again, if they've done business or if they've done hospitality, maybe they've run a bed and breakfast, maybe they've done actually running a hotel or running the front part of a hotel. If you have people who are teaching you welding or aerospace, they've actually worked in that space. And even for other topics as well, even nursing, sometimes you'll have practicums. Well, you'll have people that actually worked in nursing. So it's going to be important to sort of think about that. And again, for how much you're going to be paying, it actually is going to be of benefit of you to be able to dive into these topics with these specialists. So that's just something to consider. Now, I'm not saying that at four-year colleges there are no specialists at all. Particularly, I know for things like medical research and all of that, they are specialists. But in a lot of areas, these people, even though they may be talented in other ways, they have not actually lived outside of the classroom, the actual topics they're teaching. So just something to think about on that. Another important part of community college, I can speak from this firsthand, even for the classes that I've taken here and there at community colleges, is that it's very personalized and very small. Now, if you go to a small 4-year college in this country, you can get some of that as well. But one of the wonderful things is that you have an opportunity to, again, work in small pairings with people from the community. So for international students compared to even US based students, it's a lot of a different learning curve in the sense of you're not just having to acclimate to our culture, but you're also trying to get on board with maybe the language. You're also too just trying to learn how to meet friends and sort of integrate into the academic system. So community colleges around the country do offer a lot of support for that. Actually, I'm going to have a link to a downloadable guide that you can download for US colleges specifically that talks more about some of the financial aid that's offered for international students. We will talk about that in a second for community colleges, but go ahead and download that guide below. It's totally free and it's going to be insightful. It also includes a lot of community colleges on there. But thinking forward into how you want to sort of ingratiate yourself into a community, this could be a wonderful way to do that. And you're thinking about the fact that you have the great academics, you have somewhat of a community. Again, with community colleges, it's not as structured. There may be some clubs on campus, but it's not going to be that same structured setting that you would have in a 4-year college, but you're going to get to learn and hone some of the skills that you would need. And I'm a huge advocate of community college in general. I think that in a lot of ways, a lot of American students would do better by starting out at a community college, since our system tends to filter people straight into college compared to some places like the UK, where you have to have done internships and different things to get into a program to actually prove that you know what you're talking about. But for international students, it's the same, that you can sort of build yourself into what you want to do and really discover what you want to do without a high price tag. So in terms of the price tag, one of the things that is wonderful is that it's going to be a lot more affordable compared to a 4-year college or university here. So on average for American students, they're paying anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 for a community college education per year. For international students, it's going to range between $11,000 and $18,000. So again, that is a little bit pricey in the grand scheme of things if you are coming from a country that has free education, but it's still going to be more affordable than showing up at a 4-year private university where the price tag could be $70,000, $80,000. So it really is a bargain to be able to get your foot in the door for the American college system. Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about is the 2+2 pathway. Now, this is a fantastic pathway that is offered at several community colleges and several community college programs around the country. And the 2+2 pathway is fantastic because it sets you up to be able to move forward in a smooth transition to a 4-year college. So let's say you're coming over and you eventually want to go to SMU. We'll just stick with the Dallas example. You eventually want to go into SMU, but you're like, I don't want to start out by going to SMU. You can go to a community college in Dallas or in Texas and then transfer over into SMU, Southern Methodist University, after 2 years. So Texas is definitely one of the places that offers that. California, I do have a lot of issues with California in a lot of ways, but I do always say, I've even said on this channel several times, that California has, if not the best, then one of the best community college systems. One of the reasons for that is because you get guaranteed admission as long as you fit all the criteria and you are on that pipeline to transfer into a California State University or a UC, so a University of California like UC Berkeley, UCLA, some of these public colleges that are revered around the world. You would get guaranteed to get into one of those schools. And this is something that a lot of Americans take advantage of, but especially with international students, it could be something that could really change your life, because the secret to that as well is that for a lot of the UCs and the CSUs in California, you also get a lot of financial aid, potentially full ride scholarships. So it's something where you could have just gone to school for 2 years and then you're set up for the rest of your degree. And you really can't beat that you started out in the smaller place, you honed your skills, you sort of learned more about what college really meant, and then you moved on to go into this great program, and then you don't know where that's going to take you in the future. So just thinking about that. So definitely check out community colleges in California, Texas, New York has a great community college system, Washington State. These are some of the states, but most states have community college. It's just depending on how it's going to set you up. So just being aware of, is there a guarantee for transfer? What do you need to actually do to transfer those particular credits? But it is a wonderful system to get your foot in the door and potentially go on to do amazing things at a 4-year college or university that you actually want to go to. I will also just mention too that community colleges, for the most part, even though they either run on semester or quarter, like our 4-year colleges and universities here, that they do have rolling admission. So if you wake up one day and you're like, I want to go to the US and do community college, you can potentially do that even if it's in the middle of semester. You likely will have to wait till the next semester, but you can apply, compared to the 4-year colleges and universities where there's like a very set deadline. And obviously you have to get a visa and all of those things, but just being aware that there's rolling admission. So you can start this process at any time when you're interested in doing that. Now, some of the downsides I wanted to talk about, I think I'll just start with elephant in the room. I just mentioned it, but with the visas, obviously we know there's a lot of changes with these student visas in the United States right now, but actually community college could be a safe bet for that. They're not in the same realm of I would say, vitriol that's being projected from the government right now compared to schools like Harvard and Yale and all those schools. So community colleges in a lot of ways are also state funded. So you'll just want to think about that those could be sort of a way for you to, sort of spread out your time. If you're interested in, let's say, coming to the US in 2025, 2026 or beyond, and maybe some of those issues will be gone by the time that you want to transfer to any 4-year university that you want to go to. So just keeping that in mind. I know at the top of the video I did mention as well that they do have part-time and full-time options, but likely with a student visa to come to the community college, just as it is for 4-year colleges, you would need to be full-time. So you'll just need to keep that in mind. And then also the same rules in terms of finding part-time work would still apply. Like for some of the community colleges, they do offer part-time jobs on campus for international students as well, but you'll just need to be aware of the rules about the visas. If you've been on this channel or if you're new to the channel, you know how I feel about making sure that you are following the rules of the visa so that you can stay in whatever country you're in, and make sure that you're just abiding by the rules on that. Now, some of the downsides, unfortunately, compared to traditional 4-year colleges and universities here in the US specifically, and again, I'm speaking because Canada also is a very similar system to a certain extent, but that there's not going to be some of the add-ons that you would have. So, for example, housing could be an issue for you. So you'll need to figure that out. Now, with community colleges, a lot of times they can give you referrals, or they can give you an idea of what other students have done. So maybe there's another student or several students there who have come from maybe even your current home country. They can give you referrals of how they found housing and how they've done that. But a lot of times, 99% of the time, there's not going to be any housing at community college. So that could be a bit of a barrier. So you may want to work with whatever community college you're interested in to figure out how do you find housing? How do you go about doing that? Because again, they're going to have the visa information covered for you, but the housing is going to be that key point. And at four-year colleges and universities, for the most part, that is covered here in the US. Obviously, there are some students, if they live close by, they stay at home, but that's sort of the bread and butter of what happens in American colleges and universities. I can even speak to this in the UK of how it was. I mean, it wasn't hard for me to find housing, but the fact that it wasn't not even included, because you still have to pay for room and board, even here in the US, but the fact that you had to find something independent, it was a little bit trickier. And so you'll just want to keep that in mind of how you're going to go about that. The other thing I will just say too is that even though, despite its name of community college and how you're going to be able to meet so many people from the surrounding area and be able to bond with them and ingratiate yourself into society in the US, it's going to be a little bit harder to do some of the fun things. There are some community colleges that have clubs and, on campus different things, but it's not going to be the same sort of flow that you would find at a four-year college or university where, for example, here in the US, at most colleges and universities, there's clubs, there's a lot of times Greek life, there's sports. A lot of community colleges just don't have that. They're not set up for that. That's not what they're really there to offer. So just keeping that in mind. However, one of the things I will say is that you're going to be likely close to a college or university that's a four-year. So you could still find a way to fit into that particular group if you're interested in that. But just keeping in mind that the structure of a community college is very different in that way compared to even the smallest private, which was likely my school, the smallest private college in the US. It's just going to be set up a lot different. So you'll just want to keep that in mind, that you will still make great friends when you're in class. You'll meet the professors and you'll have all this personalized service, but that there's not going to be some of those fun elements that you might find on a campus that's more traditional here in the US. And so I hope this was informative for you. Again, with community colleges, I love talking about them because I feel like they're in a lot of ways often forgotten. Here in the US, I don't want to say controversy, but there can be a lot of stigma around community colleges for students because, again, we have this funnel where we push everyone into four-year colleges. And so if someone says they want to do that, it can be a thing, whether people like to admit it or not. But for international students, it's sort of wide open. You don't have to face the same stigma. And it really is a great opportunity for you to be able to learn how we do things here at a college or university without paying a lot of money and without sort of the burden of feeling like, oh my gosh, like I have to do this for 4 years. If I don't like it, you only have 2 years and then you can move on to something else. And then also too, the fact that you get to transfer into some of the best universities and colleges in the country. You really can't beat that. That's something that's quite amazing, and that international students have the opportunity to do that as well is something that I love talking about and that I'm so happy to share with you. So definitely download the guide below that I mentioned before and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the next one.